Alrighty. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Awoken with Aulden. As always, I'm your host, Aulden. Good evening, excuse me. As always, I'm your host, Aulden S. Nance, and we have a big show for you this evening. Our main topic, if you weren't aware, is we're going to be discussing some of the 3.5 million Epstein Files released by the DOJ a couple Fridays ago. And in particular, we're going to do a historical little breakdown and timeline of Jeffrey Epstein's connection, what it means for our politics, what it means for the world, and what it means for us as well as citizens. So if it's your first time on the live stream, would love if you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You can also check us out on Spotify. If you can watch the live stream on Twitch and X as well. After the recording or the show tonight, I always will upload these onto Spotify and Rumble as well. I believe we're on 7 platforms, and you can find clips on Instagram as well and other posts and related content for the show. So we're going to do a little chit-chatting about the history of, before I get into the slides tonight, we have some examples as well, kind of help you with the timeline. However, we're looking at usually from around when he died in 2019 to present day, the files that were just released a couple of days ago. And let's kind of think about when we're looking at these big famous people, big famous stories, controversies, and whatnot, who benefits, why, who are they related to, what does that mean for other people and societies and countries and the people impacted in the investigation and scandal and whatnot. So we're going to look at Mr. Epstein's, really, who benefited from this. And let's take a step back. We know he's just this guy from New York. Good evening. Here, let me get the chat on the. Perfect. Okay. Good evening, Beth. Thank you for joining the stream tonight. Alrighty, so we're looking at Jeff's kind of his social circle a little bit, and why is there so much attention to this case? We know there's a lot of sick people on Earth. Stuff related to this happens far too frequently, unfortunately, when it comes to abusing girls, abusing women, abusing minors, taking advantage of people. So back to the original question, like who benefited and like why is all this stuff happening? And you have all of these famous people or people that are well connected, finance, athletics, government, other sectors of the economy. A lot of weird stuff going on, for sure. And it's really, why did this happen? And the big thing that the files can't necessarily point to, but everything that we know historically is that one of the big allegations is that it's a blackmail ring or a way to keep a tight leash on the clients or the people visiting the island, making the appointments, people in close contact with Jeffrey. And the women, so let's take a look at the women or their role in it. And girls even, I should say as well. The girls were the main hook for a lot of the times with this. But how did he get the girl? How did this old guy get the girls? That's where Ghislaine Maxwell comes into play. This is where she's going to be introduced as well. That's just a little rough timeline. But if you're from Evansville, for example, the women, they're the magnets to the party. If you go to Bud's, or it's not Chasers anymore, it's shut down, it changed names. But if you go to either of those bars, usually a lot of the times good-looking women are let inside the bar without cover charge, stuff like that, right? They're usually the magnet to get other people into the bar, men in particular. And that's kind of the same deal here with the island, is that you have already famous people, but then Epstein can advertise it as we have women under a certain age, or young women as well. And these people attending the parties, maybe 40s and their 50s or older. And he doesn't have to disclose they're under 18. He just has to say young women. And that's a magnet to get them there. And once they're there, all of the cameras on the property, now they're in the trap, right? So now he has the leverage over all of these people in particular. And we're going to be looking into that tonight. So here, I'm going to pull up the guy here. Wonderful. Okay. And we're not just talking about maybe someone with a couple $1 million. We're talking about presidents, people of major worldwide corporations, some of the largest companies on planet Earth. Some of these people are alleged to be involved. I want to make that clear. The files, I'm not wanting to point immediate. We still want, there needs to be an investigation into all of this. That's what needs to happen next. Is that people mentioned in these files, or that have claims against them for doing allegedly illegal or highly unethical dealings, need to be public. There needs to be some kind of investigation from the DOJ, the FBI, Homeland Security. All of these agencies need to be looking into this stuff as well. That's because we have a right as the citizens of the country to know what is going on. If Bill Gates is involved or compromised like this, Microsoft, one of the biggest companies on planet Earth, if the owner of that is compromised or being blackmailed by Epstein or anything related to that, that's a problem, and it needs to be looked into. Same with the presidents, whether it's Bill, Donald, George Bush, or anyone like that. There needs to be some kind of investigation. And as the public, we should push for that. So let's go back to 2019. I'm not going to go all the way back. I'll do a brief little spiel about, we know didn't even graduate school and was able to teach at a college. Doesn't make much sense there. We really, how he received all of his finances and cash, that's also suspect and kind of weird. Doesn't really make sense, right? That this guy, he's not a genius by any means. There's a lot of good accountants or people good with taxes that aren't given hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, or an island or a jet or anything like that. It's very strange. Maybe we'll do more episodes in the future about a prolonged history, But really for tonight, I'm wanting to get with the recent events of the past 6 to 7 years. Let's go with 2019. He dies under mysterious circumstances. He was arrested prior, obviously. And there's really an outrage or just more questions are raised from his death than anything before. Because we know back a little further back, we know in, I believe, 06 or 08, he's arrested in Florida. He's given a sweetheart deal for 1 year. And I believe even during that year, it was limited release or limited suspicion, or he didn't have to be spectated that much, for example, or monitored. So got off with a pretty good deal the last time. Obviously, there's public outrage. We're looking at the population not understanding what's happening. All we really know is that there's all of this shady dealings going on. No one can really, as I said earlier, we have a right to know what happened. And a lot of these, whether it's people running for office or the president or whoever, promised transparency with that. But as we know, that didn't really come that easy this year. It was kind of the cast of characters on SpongeBob pushing the city when Patrick suggested to move the city. It took a lot of effort from a lot of people to get this done because there was a lot of resistance for this information to be released of what we even do have right now. There were 6 million files. We got around half that, a little over half that. So there's still millions and millions that are outstanding. Hello, Ron. Hello. Thank you for joining the stream tonight. Appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully we can learn something or learn a couple things. Excuse me. Now here's the confidant, the Robin to the Batman. Ghislaine Maxwell is seen as a pretty key figure in this entire thing. We know she's still living, at least as of the beginning of this stream, and that I believe she transferred to a prison in Florida several months ago or something like that. She's in 21, 22, case happens, is convicted, given 2 decades in prison. And we're looking at a lot of, to where she was, we'll read a document here in a second, but she began building trust with these young girls and women, groomed them into visiting the island and then performing acts, inappropriate actions on the island. And here's kind of what she did. Let's say there's a young one, maybe they want to get into modeling. And she can say, we'll come to the island, we'll help you out, maybe training or give you tips or advice or fashion advice, whatever it was. And, oh yeah, Jeff, he likes to be massaged. We'll compensate you financially if you give Jeff a massage. That was his thing. That was his, he was obviously a very mentally ill individual, but that was his thing that got him going. He liked being massaged by these young girls and young women. So like, we'll give you money, just massage him. And maybe the first or second time, nothing really crazy happened. Maybe it was just a massage. Maybe even clothes were still, all all parties had clothes on, etc. And the women and the young girls were like, oh, okay, well, this is strange, right? This is something that's not normal by any means, but it wasn't the craziest thing in the world or that I've seen in history. So they got their money, they go back home, and they're like, okay, they're reached out to again. Then maybe the third or fourth time there's some kind of an escalation, for example. Not wanting to get particularly graphic, but you can just kind of in your head, you can kind of play the story. The more times they visit, right? Okay, so we're going to pull up the press release from the DOJ, and we're going to read a lot of it together, and it's going to provide a lot of context, I believe, for you. So here we're going to pull that up real quick. Okay. Here's the guy. Ghislaine Maxwell sentenced to 20 years in prison for conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to sexually abuse minors. June 20. So this is summer of 2022. This is just a couple months before the 22 midterms. This is halfway through Joe Biden's presidency. Around them. Quote, Damian Williams, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced that Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced today in a Manhattan federal court by a U.S. Circuit Court Judge, Allison J. Nathan, to 240 months in prison for her role in to exploit and abuse minor girls with Epstein over a decade. Previously found guilty in late 2021 of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, conspiracy to transport minors to participate in illegal sex acts, transporting a minor to participate in illegal sex acts, and sex trafficking conspiracy and sex trafficking of a minor. Here, let's. Okay, from at least 94 and then to around 2004, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and participated in Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein recruit, groom, and abuse victims known to them under the age of 18. Right, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, Maxwell was the starter for. It wasn't just immediately about giving Jeffrey a massage. It was, oh, how's school going? How's mom and dad doing? What are the good movies going on? What do you and your friends like a shop? Favorite store in the mall? Kind of building that trust. And as we know, unfortunately, a lot of these girls and young women in situations, they're afraid of saying no, whether it's a fear or not wanting to upset another party, right? So let's just keep that in mind, not being rude, that it's just a reality. As Maxwell and Epstein intended, grooming behaviors left minor victims vulnerable and susceptible to abuse by Epstein. Maxwell was then present for certain sexual encounters between minor victims and Epstein, such as interactions where a minor victim was undressed and ultimately was present for inappropriate acts perpetrated by Epstein on minor victims. That abuse included sexualized messages during which a minor victim was fully or partially nude, as well as group sexualized massages of Epstein involving a minor victim where Maxwell was present. In some instances, she was a part of the abusing. So you kind of get the picture here. Here, we're going to go back to the slide deck. But hopefully that kind of helps you understand a little bit deeper her role into it all. It would have been much harder for all of this to occur without her, right? Like I said, the Batman to the Robin, the top handyman of the operation was a big key in it. So now we're going to go to a lot more recent times. Why is this being talked about today? Well, a core campaign promise of the president was to release these files, promised it on the campaign trail. If you're a follower of right-wing political media, you also know that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino also kind of campaigned on it, or at least said on conservative podcasts that if they were ever in a position of power, they would do all they could to ensure transparency and that these files would be released to the public, expressed their own personal interest in the case. So it was a big public talking point. Multiple people that were at the time or to be future members of the Trump admin also ran on it, in particular Bongino. And we're looking at, okay, now there's a critical mass of public support for this. A lot of people are paying attention to it, and they want to understand what's happening with this. The president wins in November 24. He's elected, sworn in January 20th. And we hear very quickly, we're like, okay, the supporters and even just political observers are like, alrighty, you said you would release the files when you were elected. Go ahead and release the files. And we have Pam Bondi. You probably remember the Fox News interview in particular. I believe she's outside on the south lawn of the White House. Instead of Sean, and speaking of Sean Hannity, the files are on my desk, ready. I'm looking at them right now. I can't wait to release them. Said they're coming very soon. And it really got people like, okay, that's great. Now let's see them. When are you going to release them? Again, it's okay, awesome. We're glad you won on it. Thank you. But now it's time to where the rubber meets the road. It's time to produce these. But again, this is going to be a common theme, is that they're going to be sitting on their hands a lot with this, and they won't be released for the time being. Again, here's another big one. Later on, the White House has this binder event that all these right-wing influencers, Reagan O'Hanley, the woman in the middle, she runs the Libs of TikTok X account. I believe the blonde on the right, Liz Wheeler, she's on One America News and is also in political conservative media. Scott Pressler, the guy with the very long hair that's always talking about voter turnout, getting voters registered and getting them to the polls, was also there at that event. And they're holding up these binders. Okay, once again, it's now the second or third time the Trump admin has said, okay, here's the files. These influencers, they have them right here. Look at them. They're kind of like car keys to a baby. And once again, everyone's like, okay, well, why do you just give them to Scott Pressler and Liz Wheeler and Reagan O'Hanley? Put them online or release them. Make them easily accessible for for the public to review on their own time and terms. And so even though it's a symbolic gesture of disclosure and like release, and everyone was like, okay, please release them. When you looked online or whatever, it was everything had been prior released. It was a bunch of baloney. And again, it's like, what's going on here? Why would you have this big event, promote this stuff, and there's nothing new at all? It's a pile of baloney. And now this is like the third time that there's been a promise, and it shouldn't be that hard to keep it, right? Like, why are you doing this to us? And maybe they were hoping that people would stop talking about it or forget about it. But I know that I definitely wasn't. I was like, what the heck is going on right now? Why would you do this again? Just please put them out online, release them. And then here comes the massive shift. Remember the Truth Social post when the president was like, oh, if you believe in the files or if you want to see them, actually, I don't want your support anymore. You're a dumb Democrat hoax believer or something like that. And that was like what the absolute, dude, what are you talking about? You campaigned on this. You've had it. Pam Bondi has said she's going to release them immediately. You had a fake influencer event down at the White House over this. And now it's all fake. So all of that was a lie. And he's saying, well, it's a Democrat hoax. They have never existed. I'm going to forget everything I've been saying for the past 16 months. And he's like, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about something else. Who's still talking about this Jeffrey Epstein guy? That guy was a creep. Or, he's sitting there at the cabinet meeting, I believe it is. It's a cabinet meeting. He's asked about this. And then what made it even worse is that we have this, and then what happened like 1 week to 10 days later is that we bomb Iran. So now we have this two big things that were not, we were promised no new conflicts in the Middle East, and we were also promised to see the Epstein Files. And just like right now, shooting down the Iranian drone by the USS Abraham Lincoln the other day. I believe Steve Witkoff is supposed to talk with the Iranians tomorrow at this rate. So it's almost like very convenient. We're almost locked and loaded, ready for another tussle with Iran. And the files just happened to get released a couple of days before this. Again. So as I was mentioning earlier, is that you have the kind of like the SpongeBob analogy I was mentioning, trying to push the city. It's almost like one or two people trying to push a boulder, or how they believe the pyramids were built, how they had the rope and you tie it and you pull up those huge heavy slabs. That's what it was like to try to get these files released. And so now it's mid to late summer, and people are really trying to ask, all right, where are the files? Like, this is, it's been 6 months now, and you've had multiple fake events. Your attorney general is clearly not telling the truth. The president is acting like these aren't existing anymore. And then Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Republican from Louisiana, the House, they, I believe it's 1 week early. They go home a week early before the summer recess to avoid having to discuss this issue at all anymore. Again, people are still talking about it all of the time. and it's a way for the at least maybe they were hoping to use the Trump admin to use the summer recess as a way to strategize the messaging with this. But there was one man in particular on the Republican side who did not stop for the disclosure of the files, for the public to see them, for them to be released. That man is Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky's 3rd Congressional District in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yeah, I believe it's the 3rd district, right? Yeah. Maybe the 4th, but one of the two there. He pushes for the Epstein Files Transparency Act. He's berated and publicly crushed by the president of the United States of his own party over attempting to get these files released and continue. But that's the thing. Massie was doing what all of us were doing the entire summer. It's like, this was a promise. Why are you not doing anything about it? These aren't a hoax. We know Maxwell has gone to jail. Who did she traffic? Or who did she traffic these young women to? And no one else has been arrested. So she did it just for him? I don't believe so. Just for Epstein? No. So now we have a member of Congress not afraid of the president, getting after it on a daily basis. But this also proved that, like you, if you're watching this, you're probably like me. We have influence in our votes, but other than that, we don't have political power. Unlike Thomas Massie, we can't call subpoenas. We can't vote on legislation. We can't impeach people. We can't. There's a lot of powers that we don't have that he does, and that a lot of other members of Congress do. And he was our voice during this. He was highly representative of our concerns. And actually, this is kind of slightly off topic, but that's me and the Kentucky congressman together at an event around the same time, actually, in the late summer or early fall, even last year. And I expressed my gratitude to him and thanked him for his efforts, thanked him and his staff for their efforts and willing to take these blows from the president. And I'm sure big donors and the speaker and I'm sure a lot of other congressional Republicans and people in the White House were not particularly happy with the congressman's efforts. So just wanted to give a personal shout out and a thank you for Congressman Thomas Massie. At Andre Chang 771. I remember you taking that photo. LOL. Yeah, it was a pretty go to live moment. Absolutely, Andre. Thank you for joining the stream tonight. Happy that you're here. The Epstein Files. So here's another thing about the Massie thing is that it took, for the longest time, it was Thomas Massie, and then Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina as the second member, Congressman Lauren Boebert of Colorado as the third, and then Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia as the fourth. It took 4 Republican members to go along with all of the Democrats for the files to even be released. And then once the Trump admin and Johnson and the regime saw the writing on the wall, they took a step back and like, okay, all the Republicans, now you have permission to vote for it. I believe almost all of them did, except Clay Higgins of Louisiana. So just one guy. So the Congress eventually had to give up on it. They had to vote for the Transparency Act. In the 2026 release, that we're going to be looking at a couple of these documents here in a moment. These, they're released to the public following this big time pressure from Massey. But it's not everything, right? We know there's 6 million files, a little over 3 million have been released thus far. Just a brief preview of what we're going to be looking at. Court filings, emails, depositions, a lot of photographs, meeting planning by Epstein's assistants and secretaries, helping famous people get in touch with Jeffrey Epstein, to whether it was going to one of the parties or just trying to get lunch with him or attend at some event, attend a fundraiser with him. And just want to say beforehand, these are right now, why we need the investigation is because these are just the documents. We cannot, people that are listed in them doesn't necessarily mean there's wrongdoing or they're guilty of anything. Just want to put that out there just for everybody to just kind of remember, is that it may look very bad for maybe more people than others, but we also want to kind of keep track that not everything is final as well with these. Just a quick little review of the timeline is that it took one man from Kentucky for this conversation to happen. That's what it took. And it's just think of the resistance he had to get through. Donors, President of the United States, the House Speaker. I'm sure a lot of internal, particularly with the other three Republicans. Marjorie Greene is not a member of Congress anymore. Now, there was some other stuff going on with that, but, kind of suspicious timing all of a sudden. And we're just looking at a long little timeline there. Is that understand? That's why I wanted to build out the timeline for you. Is that now you know how we got to where we are this given moment. And we'll have to see in the future if, and hopefully when, the remaining documents and files are released to the public. Wanting to show you a variety of people. As I mentioned at the top of the show, billionaires, finance bros, people on Wall Street, people involved in politics, people involved in the elite circles of other countries. I wanted to try to cast a little wide net for you this evening. And to the left, you have Stephen Bannon meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, discussing something. Why does this matter in particular? We know Steve Bannon has a little media empire, the Bannon's War Room, hundreds of thousands of daily listeners. We know that, especially in the first term, you could argue him and Kellyanne Conway were the two most important people to help the president get elected in 2016. A chief political strategist, a political genius when it comes to political strategy, rather, even with Stephen here. So we're talking about Epstein had the ear of a very influential member for the president, or the person for the president of the United States, a top advisor, the chief political strategist, essentially. And it's kind of strange, right? Like, we know Bannon as in politics, and Epstein did his tax and finance stuff. Just kind of suspicious. Again, not accusing of anything, just wanted to plant that seed in your head. Political figures from the other political party. William Jefferson Clinton, the 42nd president of the United States. We know had an extensive and deep relationship with Mr. Epstein. Lots of photographs, emails, public perception. And something that I want to get, I know a lot, this is, we are on the show, we are right wing. However, we're just want to remind everybody is that it wasn't, don't let James Comer and House Republicans just make it about Bill and Hillary Clinton to you. As I mentioned, other people on the right wing were involved in this, other people in the center. Don't let, when I talk about the political paradox before, remember is that it's one big club and we're not in it, right? So we want to be thinking critically about sometimes not everyone is looking out for us when it comes to that, even if they have similar political beliefs or beliefs about this or that or whatever. So just keep that in mind. But again, Bill Clinton, Epstein had the ear of the chief executive of the most important human being on planet Earth. That's pretty important, right? Not just this one. We know he's at least had some kind of a relationship with the incumbent president of the United States and other political leaders as well. So I can make this a little larger. Let's see. Here, I'll just kind of remove myself from the screen for a second. But here's an email from the world's richest human being on planet Earth. And again, just can't verify. That's why there needs to be an investigation, but at least recovered by the FBI and the DOJ, a part of this investigation, is that at 6:07 a.m. on Christmas in 2012, Elon's asking, do you have any parties planned? I've been working to the edge of sanity this year, and so once my kids head home after Christmas, I really want to hit the party scene in St. Bart's or elsewhere and let loose. The invitation is much appreciated, but a peaceful island experience is the opposite of what I'm looking for. Again, isn't that just a little weird to be saying that? And Epstein responds, you are welcome to stay or just come for the day. Plenty of room. I will send a helicopter to get you. I'll do the same thing. Remove my face from the screen. Here's another incumbent political figure in the Trump administration cabinet, I believe Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. And we know Howard has claimed that he cut off the relationship in 2005. That Howard said, I haven't had any contact with Jeffrey since 2005. He's a real creepy dude. Haven't talked to him. Well, this email would indicate that there's he's making some mistake, whether it's a memory mistake or contradicting himself. I'll read it. Quote, hi, Jeff. We are landing in St. Thomas early Saturday afternoon and planning to head over to St. Bart / Angolia on Monday at some point. Where are you located? Open parenthesis, what is exact location for my captain? Close parenthesis, question mark. Just Sunday evening for dinner sound good. I have another couple, open parenthesis, Michael and Marcy Learman, close parenthesis, with me on my boat. And each of us has 4 children, 2 16-year-olds, 2 14-year-olds, a 13, a 12, an 11, and a 7-year-old. Thanks, Howard. So that's a little strange, Howard. You told us that you cut off the relationship 7 years prior. And here's an email that indicates, with a lot of specific details about ages of the family's children, specific times to go grab lunch, asking for details for the captain, so the captain knows where to exactly go. That would be a lot to make up, right? Again, we need the investigation. I'm going to emphasize that a lot with these emails, but that's a little strange to be to write and send that email, right? And just for clarification, this was sent to the an assistant, Leslie Groff, an assistant for Epstein. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Leslie sent it to Jeff Epstein, right? Just a little clarification for you. Okay, we're going to do the same deal here. And Steve Tisch, you may not know this individual. He's the co-owner and like a big-time executive for the New York Giants, the NFL team. Again, just wanting to provide you another example of, it may not be a public figure that everyone recognizes at first. It may just be a rich guy that is working for your favorite NFL team or sports team. And this email or email chain particularly is about Steve with a young Ukrainian. So let's start. The first email from Steve says, quote, "Nice report, funny comment on crying," a lot of exclamation points. And that's a response to Epstein, quote, "Report just in, you did very well. She wants to go to the play. She is a little freaked out by the age difference, but go slow and maybe wait," is what he meant. "I will try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. Having her crying worked." Steve, I believe, said or wrote, "Thanks." Then the next email from Epstein, we're kind of going in reverse order here. I reached out to Redacted. She is not on this trip. Steve wrote, looks like just a forward message sent from my iPhone. But Steve wanted, okay, no, I'm sorry. Steve sent the phone number to, looks like Jeff send me a number, call. I don't like this and write, which is also kind of weird because that's how he got the evidence on these files. And also used, if you look at the top right corner, thanks, Jeffrey, curious to know about Redacted. I will contact Redacted. And pro or civilian, it's a code it used. Pro would be professional, obviously, and civilian would just be normal individual. Here, let's remove the comments for a split second so everyone can see the email on the bottom right corner. "No, but I will ask Redacted, all confidential." And this is from Jeffrey Epstein. "I will get all info. Did you contact the great ass fake half redacted? She's a character, short term, has an older boyfriend, going to acting school, a 10 ass. I am happy to have you as a new but obviously shared interest friend." And that's in response to Steve saying, "Hi, Jeffrey. I just had lunch with your assistant's friend, Redacted, who I met at your house Wednesday morning. Very sweet girl. Do you know anything about her? Thanks, Steve." Sent from my iPhone. So here we're going to go back to here, I'll put the comments back on. and we'll put my face back in this. But again, very odd, very particular, very. If you asked AI to make it might take a couple million times for those specific details and grammar and sentences to be used. So again, very odd. And that's the end of the slide deck. Those were just a couple examples. But we know a lot of other people who have been mentioned, including Bill Gates, other political figures like Prince Harry. You've probably seen the photo of Prince Harry. He's on the ground, and there seems to be a younger woman involved. So again, just wanting to a little recap of what we've been talking about this evening is this is a very extensive and large thing. And now let's kind of go to the why with this, right? We're looking at all of this stuff is happening, right? Owners of sports, co-owners of sports teams, presidents being involved, big people that are now in the cabinet for the president. At Brad Harrell, R4T, Sicko Freaks, Johns needs to be exposed and arrested. Yeah, very odd stuff. And as I mentioned, the women, that was to the blackmail part, to get the client stuck. Once the actions have been, once the celebrity or finance bro goes to the island and there's some email record talking about an experience with a minor or intimate details about a minor, stuff like that, now they're trapped into it. And there are legit questions on was Epstein intelligence for whether the United States or Mossad or another country? Who, why did they do this? What's the, if you have this big blackmail operation, why, what's the end goal? Is it just to have control over the elites, like keep them in check? Or what really is it, right? So we'll go more into the hypotheticals and stuff like that on a later show. Just wanted to kind of give you we're dipping our toes in tonight with the Epstein situation, more or less. So if anyone has any comments or questions, happy to discuss in the chat with you as well. So thank you for tuning in to tonight's stream. Maybe next week, I'm hoping. Reason we didn't have show last night is had a prior obligation needed to meet. So we will be back at least next week, next Awoken Wednesday. If not, maybe try. I want to do a video about the national defense strategy, because we talked about the national security strategy before on the show. Additionally, we have discussed, I still want to get to Taiwan at some point, for sure. And also something that kind of ties to our Minneapolis episode last week is right now there's a lot of discussion in the Senate for the legislative body to take up the SAVE Act. And actually, we'll look in here. We'll keep going here. I'll pull something up about the SAVE Act and what the Senate could try and do for that. Let's do this Fox. Okay, here, let's share the screen again. Apologies for this. It's not being super cooperative. Okay, here we go. Let's kind of go through this Fox News article together. Now it's just kind of being a pain. It could. Yeah, my frame got a lot slower. We're going to try it. Maybe see if there's a better article.
Over the past 3 weeks, there has been a lot of news under the surface about the SAVE Act. This is a bill to safeguard our elections and require proof of U.S. citizenship before voting, among other provisions. Now, our conversation on this started with Scott Presler, who has been called.
Again, you see that Scott Presler name. We talked about him. Again, those names I'm under release at the White House, telling you about like trying to become awoken. Those names, Reagan O'Hanley. We'll find out the name of the TikTok lady or Libs of TikTok lady. Liz Wheeler, Scott Presler. Start realizing who these people are and who else they're associated with. Scott Presler being talked about this. How can we trust him in the future now, right? Even though he was a pile of crap at the White House a couple weeks or several months ago. So just keeping that in mind. Here's the beginning of this article. Report want to see last berries in the Senate. And again, a timeline that I failed to mention during the timeline is that remember how Dems, and we just had the longest government shutdown ever, 45 days. And the Dems said, we're shutting it down because we want more Obamacare subsidies added. And how at the end of the shutdown, the Democrats got nothing out of it at all. Like nothing. Nothing changed from that shutdown. And that's it. That's what we're just supposed to go with. Okay, so back to the article. Trump, who encouraged the House Republicans to stand down from their do-or-die demands, renewed his call to pass voter ID legislation while signing the funding package in law Tuesday. They need some that Democrats vote for it. But we've heard this stuff a lot now from the both parties. They need the 60 vote threshold to be cleared. Let's keep going. I believe there is a way to get around the filibuster. Here, I'm going to read a. Here, we'll go back to the full. Here, let's just get off this Fox News deal because it's making the stream run quite slow right now. But I have a text message to read, texted in by a fan at a little while ago. And I will read it to you here. It's about the SAVE Act in particular. There has been significant discussion around the SAVE Act and calls for Leader Thune to bring it up for passage. This explanation outlines the procedural strategy being advocated by hardline conservatives. When the House passes a bill, the Senate Majority Leader may choose to invoke the rule XIV. Under this rule, a House passed bill can bypass the committee process and be placed directly on the Senate's legislative calendar for floor consideration. These procedures originate from an earlier era of the Senate. Many of the chamber's rules were written in the 19th and early 20th centuries when the Senate was much smaller, legislative workloads were lighter, and senators were expected to remain physically present on the floor for long periods of time. The Senate operated more like a continuous debating body than a modern legislature, and its rules assume near constant attendance and unlimited debate until senators are exhausted or all speaking opportunities are used. Once a bill is on the Senate floor, Senate rules allow for a senator to request a live quorum call. Ordinarily, quorum calls are used as a procedural pause to keep the floor open while senators are in their offices and not meant to force action. A live quorum call, however, requires senators to physically appear on the floor to establish that a quorum is present. Under the scenario being proposed, if the SAVE Act is placed on the floor through Rule XIV and the Majority Leader requests a live quorum call, the usual 60 vote cloture threshold would not apply. Instead, once a quorum is established, the Senate would proceed under rules requiring a 2/3 vote with senators present and voting for passage. After quorum is confirmed, the bill would be read on the floor. Senate rules then allow each senator up to 2 speeches on the measure. Once every senator who wishes to speak has used both opportunities, the Senate must proceed to a final vote. This process can consume extraordinary amounts of time and is where some of the longest filibusters in Senate history occurred. In the 1960s, segregationist senators used these rules to delay civil rights legislation. One senator spoke for more than 24 hours straight, I believe Strom Thurmond of South Carolina. And collectively, opponents consumed nearly 2 months of continuous floor time. Once all speeches were exhausted, the Senate was required to proceed to a vote under its rules, and the legislation ultimately passed. Hardline conservatives are now urging Senate leadership to revive and use this historically rooted procedure to force consideration and passage of the SAVE Act. All right, so very long and thorough message. Hopefully you kind of understood a little bit of what's going on there. So we'll be talking about the SAVE Act here, whether it's next week or even sooner. Saturday, I will be out again. I'm going to do another live stream of an anti-Iranian incumbent regime protest every Saturday, this group will meet and they'll walk on the mall and voice their opposition to the Khamenei and the mullahs in Tehran. And then Monday, if Bill and Hillary Clinton are still testifying in the House, I'm going to go to that as well. So a couple immediate things for your schedule that we'll be doing in the next several days. But if anyone, I'll leave the floor open for another minute or so if you have questions about the Epstein controversy or situation and the timeline, would love to hear from you. And just a reminder, if it's your first time on the live stream or you're listening to this at a later date, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Additionally, we're also on Rumble, Spotify, X, Instagram, Twitch, and Facebook as well. You can find us on all of those 7 platforms. Please like and subscribe and follow all of them for up-to-date content and updates. I always try to get have a question from G Money for EBA 2024. had class tonight, just joining now. Can you recap what you covered? Absolutely. We did a timeline of Jeffrey Epstein's since his arrest and death in 2019 to a good chunk of the photos and emails just released by the DOJ and the FBI a couple days ago, a couple Fridays ago. Additionally, we really covered the campaign promises made by the Trump admin and other people in the cabinet that promised transparency. We also discussed the lack of willingness at times for the admin and the resistance to release these files, how Thomas Massie had to introduce legislation for the files to become public, and even how challenging that was. And then we got to where that bill ultimately passed, and a lot of these files have now since been released. We still have millions to go, though. So who knows what's going to be, what these next little over maybe 3 million files left will have to do. Maybe it will give us, but these files released, again, there's a lot of more, not many answers, a lot of questions. So we need investigations to occur. We need these people to testify to Congress if they're, because, we cannot have members of elite society in our country potentially have been compromised for a decade or more. So a lot of big stuff. Question from G Money: do you think Bill Gates caused COVID as cover to slip antibiotics to his wife? That's a good, funny one. Yeah, potentially. We're looking at these people. Just think of the resistance for these documents to be withheld from the public eye for pretty much a year. It took from when the president was inaugurated, it took essentially the next 11 months to get these files out. So it wouldn't surprise, maybe not starting COVID, but it wouldn't surprise me if these people spent a lot of personal capital or burnt bridges or had stuff happen to people, for example, or other scenarios occur to try and keep their private life hidden, or if they made any mistakes to remedy them in whatever way possible and under any means necessary. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of these people did illegal or very highly unethical things to try and escape their actions and choices that they made in life. Very good question, though. Yeah, who knows what he has done to try maybe again. Yeah, like I said, there's 3 million left to go at least. So who knows what's going to be in the next tranche of files. But the big takeaway tonight is that we all need to be calling for investigations. We need to know what the deal is with all of this stuff. If the level of these people being compromised, maybe they were just a little bit compromised or fully compromised or whatever. But this is a pretty serious deal. I just want everyone to understand that this is no small matter at all. Excuse me. Still trying to get over this cough. Goodness. Now, weather is still not really particularly well at all. Okay, does anyone else have any comments, questions, anything else you'd like to know before we head out for let everyone get back to their Thursday evening? Still on another minute or so. Got a pretty, very happy, I'm always happy with all of the audiences, but we had a definitely by far the most live number of viewers for a show. Cracked 30, a little over 30 a couple times. So yeah, once this gets really big, one day you'll know that you were at the beginning of something very special and incredible. And that's the idea, right? Is that I want this to have all of these episodes basically have a talking encyclopedia in myself, where whether it's Yemen or the Epstein Files or Taiwan, Sudan, Lebanon, Venezuela, Maduro, the supreme leader of Iran, Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, that you have something to go back to and look at and that you can learn off of. And then one day when maybe something happens or there's a position for that I can get the mass awakening together, once we unlock more people's minds together and grow the Awoken, and to where we're talking about now we have millions of people a part of the Awoken community, then we can have serious political play in the country, and that determines the future of it, right? We'll be talking about elections a lot this year. I will kind of help you understand your actual political power as an individual. That's something I really look forward to doing. So thank you again for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate your viewership and attention and questions and comments. Very fun evening. Just one reminder, doing a couple streams this weekend. We'll maybe do a couple anchor shows like this next week, potentially about Taiwan or the national defense strategy, or maybe a recap of how Bill and Hillary Clinton's testimony went. And to subscribe to the channels, please. All right, everybody. Thank you so much again for tuning in tonight. I appreciate the support as always. And you have been awoken with Aulden. All right, much love, everybody. Good night. I will see you soon.